The Guardian writer, they're cherry picking information. They're saying they're looking at one set of data which shows that wages are on a percent basis up. And they're making a conclusion that, well, why shouldn't the left be happy about this because wages are up? So they refuse to simply add context to that number and say, okay, wages are up this much, but inflation's up more. So your adjusted quality of life is down. So the left is mathematically and financially illiterate. They refuse to put numbers into context. They cherry pick a number and then they build a scenario around social justice. They try to, instead of putting the number in context economically, they try to put the number in context to a political agenda. And then this writer here at The Guardian writes a story that tries to put those two together in a story. And people that read it just look at it and say, oh, wow, inflation's good for the left, which is diametrically opposed to the fact. It's like saying the sky is green, right? But this is why there's not going to be a stop to this anytime soon, because you have an incredible power base in America of what are associated to be left-wing politicians. So this isn't going to end anytime soon.
Again, the question, why doesn't inflation worry the left so much? So we've pointed out that homelessness, there's a strong correlation between house prices, inflation and house prices, and homelessness. Joe Biden, to his credit, this week is like they're having meetings to discuss this problem with house prices rising so hard and fast. Obviously, he's also reappointing Jerome Powell. That's his plan. So he's not really doing much. Nevertheless, this headline as well. Rising food prices deepen the woes of world's poorest. Food prices are up 40% from last May. This is hitting these poor countries. They catalog a whole bunch of countries having civil unrest, social unrest at the moment, including South Africa, Cuba, and Haiti. Lebanon is facing a grave financial and economic crisis that has sent its currency into a tailspin and brought the country close to default. There, the rate of food price inflation stood at 226% on a 12-month basis in May. Argentina, rocketing prices. World Bank, high inflation in Nigeria, they point out, is also causing strife and hunger.
Well, let me make a very stark metaphor here, and hopefully the left will get it in their nut. What's happening in Germany? There's massive flooding. People are dying.
Yes.
Okay. The obvious solution is stop the flooding. Okay. I don't think I'm speaking out of school there. I think that's a pretty logical conclusion. Stop the flooding. In America, the homelessness crisis is expanding. Drug overdose is expanding, and it's a result of the flood of money printing. From Jerome Powell. He's flooding the system with bad money, is ruining the purchasing power of the currency and creating social mayhem and uprisings. The obvious solution would be to stop printing money, stop the flood. But instead, Biden is saying we're going to reappoint Powell and we're going to open up the faucets more. Okay, so that is the definition of insanity. It's going to get a lot worse. These people are overtly cognitively impaired and not obvious.
It must be only temporary because the banksters said it is. And although, the prices are skyrocketing, the numbers just came out from the Builders Association this week, that it only costs between June of this year to be June of 2020, the prices to build a house only went up 26%. And of course, lumber prices came way down, but they're still up over 50%. So no, this isn't transitory, it's real. And it's going to have a devastating effect on we the little people of Slavelandia, because when you go out and buy from food to gas or whatever, we have to pay more. But the Federal Reserve is lying about this as we see it, because they're not stupid, and they need to keep interest rates down. And they need to keep them down for a couple of reasons. Because when interest rates go up, the markets go down. They're borrowing money for nothing, as everybody that tunes into your show knows, and that's keeping the gamblers gambling on Wall Street and artificially propping it up. Oh, and then mortgage rates, they just came down again to a February low. Oh, so that keeps the housing boom going, doesn't it? Oh, and then there's that thing called federal debt. Oh, it's only $30 trillion. So when interest rates go up, you have to pay more on interest, don't you? But don't worry about it. Inflation isn't going up, so interest rates aren't going up. I'm a member of the Fed.
The policy from the Fed for the past 30 years, no matter what the situation, is to lower rates and print money. So in the case of inflation, they lower rates and print money. If it's deflation, they lower rates and print money. Stagflation, oh, we lower rates and print money. And I think at this point in time, people are pretty cognizant of the fact that the Federal Reserve Bank and the current chairman, Jerome Powell, are committing a massive fraud. Now, what will be the end game here? Because the mainstream media is totally compromised and they're in on the fraud. Nancy Pelosi trades on inside information, and so it's legal for U.S. politicians who get the news from Jay Powell first. He calls them up and says, hey, buy these stocks, buy these options. We're going to give you some more free money. I mean, the corruption is really astounding. And the opiate overdoses are skyrocketing, 90,000 last year. So Jay Powell has killed more Americans than we saw in Vietnam. So are the Americans going to, you think, is there going to be an end game, or is it just this is the end, Gerald? What do you think?
They keep making up new stuff to keep it going. I mean, who would have ever believed, you have zero and negative interest rate policy? They'll do anything. They're money junkies. And they'll keep it going as much as they can. When everybody knows the bubble is going to burst, and there's going to be a point when it happens, but who knows when and what will they do? When all else fails, by the way, they take you to war. There's this thing called the Afghan War that 88% of the American people supported when George W. Bush, the daddy's boy born on third base, declared it back in 2001. Oh, what happened, Max, in March of 2000? Oh, there was a dot-com bust. Oh, and the nation was in recession. And all of a sudden, I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, you Yankee Doodle do or die, let's go to Afghanistan. So they're going to do things to get the people's minds off the devastation. And you're looking at the numbers. You mentioned the people ODing on drugs. Oh, only 80,000 restaurants went out of business last year. Oh, but in the meantime, the big banksters are borrowing money for nothing, 0.35%? And they charge us in credit cards 27%? Oh, and how about the Black Rocks and the Blackstones and the JP Morgan Chase? How many times has JP Morgan Chase been convicted of fraud? Oh, only 5. And nobody goes to jail. But look at the JP Morgan Chase deals, the Goldman Sachs deals, and all the other deals that I just mentioned from Blackstone, BlackRock, and the mergers and acquisition activity. The bigs are getting much bigger because they're borrowing the money for nothing. For nothing. As we, the little people of Slavelandia, have to pay that 27, I think it's 0.5% interest rate when you're late on a day on your credit card.